नमस्कार नमस्कार critique the concepts of Orientalism and Indology and their possible long-term impact on the formation of socio-religious identities in India in the light of the submissions on the subject made by Edward Said, Richard King and Romila Thapar. This essay discusses in detail about the critique of the concept of Orientalism and Indology and their possible long-term impact on the formation of socio-religious identities in India in the light of the submissions on the subject made by Edward Said, Richard King, and Omira Thapa. The term Hinduism, which of course derives from the frequency with which Hindu came to be used, is a Western explanatory construct. David Koff praises this gift from the Orientalists, seemingly unaware of the Eurocentric agenda underlying it and the extent to which the Euro superimposition of monolithic entity of Hinduism upon Indian religious material has distorted and perhaps irretrievably transformed Indian religiosity. The term Hinduism seems first to have made an appearance in the early 19th century and gradually gained prominence in the decades thereafter. 18th century religion of reference to the religion of the Gentoos. Example: Nathaniel Brassey Halhed, 1776. A code of Gentoo law were gradually supplanted in the 19th century by reference to the religions of the Hindus, a preference for the Persian as opposed to the Portuguese designation of the Indian people. As Killingley suggests, the Ram Mohan was probably the first Hindu to use the word Hinduism. One hardly need mention the extent to which Raj's conception of the Hindu religion was conditioned by European, Muslim, and Unitarian theological influences. Ironically, there is considerable reasons, therefore, for the frequency with which Western scholars have described Roy as the father of modern India. If we note, for instance, the extent to which the British established an education system which promoted the study of European literature, history, and science, and the study of Indian culture through the medium of English or vernacular translations of the work of Western Orientalists. If we also acknowledge the fact that all of India's universities were established by the British and according to British educational criteria, we can see hope of a hope of an elite class of Anglicized Indians were put into practice. The Arabic al-Hilal, therefore, is a term denoting a particular geographical area. The term of homogeneity, the modern myth of Hinduism, skepticism about the applicability of globalized, highly abstract, and univocal system of thought into the religious experiences of humankind as manifested by the world religions approach to the study of religions have been expressed by scholars like Wilfred Cantwell Smith on the grounds that such an approach provides us with an overly homogenized picture of human cultural diversity. A historical view of early Indian religion would endorse this dichotomy and its continuity even in changed forms. Early Brahminism demarcates the twice-born upper castes from the rest. The twice-born has to observe the precepts of Shruti, the Vedas, and of Smriti, the auxiliary texts to the Vedas, and particularly Dharmasastras. William Jones, for example, in his role as Supreme Court judge in India, initiated a project to translate the Dharmasastras in the misguided belief that this represented the law of Hindus in order to circumvent that he saw as the culpable bias of native pundits. Thus, even within these texts, there was no notion of a unified Hindu community, but rather an acknowledgement of a plurality of local occupational and caste contexts in which different customs or rules applied. Tribes and professionals group when converted into jatis were given a varna status, a jati rank, and if necessarily assigned a gotra. The law, customs, marriage, and family system of the tribe often survived its transformation into a caste. The Dharma Shastras mention not only the Shastras, the Vedic literature, and the Puranas as sources of law, but also the customs and usages of various people and professions. The point to emphasize is that this truth about the distinctive differences between races, civilizations, and languages was or pretended to be radical and ineradicable. A scientist could no more escape such origins in his research than an Oriental could escape the Semites, Semites or the Arabs or the Indians, from which his present reality debased, colonized, backward, excluded him except for the white researcher's didactic representation. For the For the upper caste, the norms as indicated in the Dharma Shastras carried the sanction of law. In many cases, the authority of custom law would prevail. The new caste also brought their religious belief and rights with them. They were then grafted into the main tradition of the new religion which they adopted. Some of the modifications and changes which occur in the evolution of classical Hinduism, such as the avatars of Vishnu, the cults of various female deities, and also a variety of rites and rituals, can be more adequately explained with reference to the new social groups periodically incorporated into Hindu society. Race theory ideas about primitive origin and primitive classification, modern decadence, the progress of civilization, the destiny of the white for Aryan races, the need for colonial territories, all these were elements in peculiar amalgam of science, politics, and culture, whose drift almost without exception was always to raise Europe or a European race to dominion over non-European portions of mankind. Dharma Shastras mention only not the Shastras, the Vedic literature and the Puranas as sources of law, but also the custom and uses of various people and professions. Buddhist and Jaina monasteries, Hindu temples and mathas, Muslim mosques and khanqahs and other religious institutions were all recipients of handsome donations and endowments. Such endowments, when small, provided the necessary financial support for them to be independent. The use of such labor is clearly referred to in Buddhist texts and is also mentioned, though perhaps less directly, in Jain sources. The income from the monasteries at Nalanda were provided by an endowment of 100 villages, which in part explained how it could accommodate so many thousands of students free of cost. 18 royal patronage were a perennial source of wealth. There are documents to prove that even the Emperor Aurangzeb gave endowments to Brahmins and to Hindu institutions such as Gojan Mathas in Champaran. Uh, the afterlife death the, the life after death of the hero in the heaven of Indra or Shiva, waited upon by Apsaras, goes back to Vedic belief in the Pitra Loka or house of the fathers. Initially a ritual which ensured that the faithful wife accompanied her hero husband to heaven, and therefore associated largely with Kshatriya caste, and those denying heroic death its practices by other castes in the second millennium AD involved a change in eschatology. Ultimately, the sati was defied, which meant that she neither needs to have when she neither went to heaven nor was subject to the rule of karma. Conclusion: critique of the concept of Orientalism and their possible long-term impact on the formation of social religious ideas in the light of submission on the subject made by Edward Said, Richard King, Emila Thapar, and Sia. Bibliography: Edward Said, Edward, 2001, Orientalism, New Delhi Penguin, Romila Thapar, Imagined Religious Communities, Ancient History and Modern Search for Hindu Identity, Critical, Critical Question, New Delhi 1998, King Richard Orientalism and the Myth of on the Modern Myth of Hinduism, Romila Thapar, The Past and Prejudice. Thank you so much.